Welcome back to the program, everyone. I'm your host today, Jeff, on Economic Preppers. This is part 2 of a video about Bitcoin surging here on a Tuesday night, early Wednesday on the East Coast. Bitcoin has jumped up. I'm going to share my screen real quick here and get into it. Part 1 over on my other crypto channel, I'm going to put on Litecoin Leader. I'm going to put that link up here. I talked a lot about, let me share my screen. I'll talk about this briefly. So prices jumped up to hit 45K today. Now it's in the mid 43,000s. It's mostly related to the ETF, which I talked about over there. Also talked about why it could be too high because of the extreme greed. And the chart could be looking like it's overbought because the RSI is too high, and it could be forming a cup with handle. That's the quick story. If you head over the video, there's a little bit more details on that. But I want to talk about today some of the geopolitical reasons as to why I think that this could be a bull trap, which means the price goes up and then it's going to come down, because I think it's too soon for this rally. The rally typically happens about 150 to 210, 5 to 7 months after the halvening. The halvening is scheduled for April of 2024. So you're basically lining up with the election where it's going to surge, and they're calling this now the Santa rally because it's December. I think it's a year too early. It should be between Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's next year. So some other things I wanted to talk about as to possibilities why this could be a bear trap, or the price could go back down in January. I mentioned this in the other video about tax selling, and I'm going to talk about when I think the ETF is going to come out. Okay, I did promise that in the other video. I think that, let me touch on the stories and I'll drop out here and tell you about the ETF date. I think that we are not in a free market because of the taxes, because if it was a free market, the tax rules wouldn't apply. No one would care. But because in the US, there's these tax rules. If you sell in December, you have to take profit, and it's a profit, you have to pay taxes on that profit. Whereas if you take a loss, you can just write that off in that year. So people are not in a rally when Bitcoin's shooting up. You typically don't sell until January because you don't want to pay those. You don't want to defer the taxes for at least a year, if not longer. So that's one reason. Another reason, I mentioned also this in the other video, and I'm going to go into a little bit further details. And again, the video is not playing, but when they did the press conference right before Thanksgiving about CZ being forced to step down from CEO of Binance, the CFTC made a big production about this. And one of the things that they did in that press conference was say that, this is the first of many that they're looking at. They're looking at centralized exchanges, looking at decentralized exchanges. So it would not surprise me at all if the CFTC goes after other exchanges, not Coinbase though. I don't think they're going to go after Coinbase, but I think they're going to go after pick one. Kraken, Gemini. Gemini is probably the number one I would think that they would go after because it's based in New York, and New York is not a crypto-friendly place at all. But they're going to go after decentralized exchanges and DeFi, so they could come under attack as well. And also the timing is good. And for February, because another bad story that can come out is that CZ is going to get sentenced in February. So there's another thing that could push the market down. I did mention this the other video that the U.S. owns a boatload of Bitcoin. They own $5 billion worth of Bitcoin because they seized it through various, like Silk Road, other things that they confiscated over the years. They have over 200,000 Bitcoin. This was as of June. So that's a lot of, so let's see, 200,000 Bitcoin with 40K. I'll round that to about, that would be about $1 million times 10,000. So $10 billion. Yeah, about worth $10 billion now that they could dump on the market to push it down. And there's many reasons why they're going to do that. Now I'm going to explain that in a minute. But there's another story that says $5 billion in Bitcoin. Now it's more like 10. A lot of geopolitical reasons out there. One is, Bitcoin went up to 37,000 as Javier Milei became the president in Argentina a couple weeks ago. That's this story right here. And also, this was announced. I haven't done a video on this lately, but I will. I've mentioned in Brazil a lot. Rio is big. They put, I think, 1% of their annual budget into Bitcoin. They don't tell you about the stateside, but there is a lot of money that goes in South America and other third world countries that goes into Bitcoin. And this is a BRICS nation. So that's another thing that's going to be pushing against the dollar. So let me drop out of here. those are the stories I wanted to touch on. And let me just tell you my opinions on this and when I think the ETF is going to come out. So they have to do something by January. That's everybody's betting by 90% because of that chart that I showed in the other video. And I could show it real quick here just for completeness. But you can see that there's about a dozen ETFs that are out there, and their due dates for a transaction, they pretty much all align into early to mid-January. Now, there's been activity with BlackRock and other of these ETFs that they're doing documentation to work on their ETFs, which is another signal that they're getting funding for it too. So it looks like they're getting ready for the ETF to be approved. And a lot of people are saying 90% likelihood in January. Now, I think the ETFs are probably going to be approved between Christmas and New Year's. That's my bet because of the many reasons I just said. First, people won't want to cash out of something that's in a positive to move it over to Bitcoin. So the powers that be will have the first opportunity to go get their Bitcoin and when no one's looking in the holiday window. That's typically when they like to announce things that they like to have fly under the radar. So just look at 1913 and what they passed. The Federal Reserve was passed in 1913, as was the IRS. So, well, not entirely, but definitely the Federal Reserve was passed about that time frame by a small. That's another story, another video. Go read "Creature from Jekyll Island" by G. Edward Griffin. Excellent man. Well, it was my pleasure to meet him and talk to him at the Silverson Symposium in October. It was fantastic. But anyway, that's the window when you're not looking, like right before Thanksgiving with that CFTC announcement, when you're not looking and you're basically spending time with family and friends and opening presents and watching football and eating food and just you got other things on your mind versus watching what's going on in the news. That's typically when they announce the most important news because they don't want you to pay attention to it. That's when I'm looking. So stay tuned to this channel for that kind of updates. But that's when I think the ETF is going to come out. And they'll do it then because people will be like, should I sell my stock? Should I sell this? Should I sell that to move over to Bitcoin? I don't think it will. I think it'll probably happen on January 2nd or 3rd, and you'll see price action, and they'll have a story ready for either direction. If Bitcoin goes up, they'll just say, well, people were taking profits in early January because after tax reasons. So that's like the money will start to show up like it's moving then. And that's why Bitcoin's going up. If it goes down, they'll say it's buy the rumor, sell the news. And the news came out and then it's going back down. But really, I think this is a bear trap because of the geopolitical reasons, okay? The BRICS nations, Brazil is a big one. El Salvador is now profitable after a couple of years using Bitcoin. Everybody has been, stomping, like myself included, been saying Bitcoin is the way. Like the Bitcoin has doubled in the last 12 months. What else has? I mean, okay, so that's a big deal. But the biggest issue in the United States is what happens next November, right? You got an election coming. They want to preserve the current financial system and pretend and present the current economy as best as they can. And they can't do that if Bitcoin is running up to 100K. They just can't do that. So they're going to do whatever they can, either dumping their supply of Bitcoin, putting out FUD or for fear, uncertainty, and doubt news to push the price down. That's what they're going to do in the next 12 months to keep that price down as long as possible. Now, there are other reasons that it could go up. I think that both scenarios are in play. But I just want to remind everybody that when you're in a market like this and you have all these green candles, everything's skyrocketing up. Everybody's like fear and greed index is over 80. Everybody wants to buy more and it's going to keep going up and up and up. Eventually it pauses and comes back down. As you saw on the chart, it eventually retraces and it's the natural cycle. I think that it's going to go up to 40 or 50K. Well, we're in the 40s. We're basically in the 40s now. It may hit 50K, but then it's probably going to pull back a little bit, maybe even to the 30s. It may languish there for a little while as long as they can hold it down. So yes, gold is up. Yes, Bitcoin is up, but be cautious out there and just know that these markets are not free markets. They are still manipulated because Bitcoin is a big deal and it gets global and US and financial market visibility all over the place now. And the next 12 months, keeping that price down is critical for them as they try to hold on to their control of everything. And he who controls the money controls the world. To paraphrase I think it was that Rockefeller? Well, if you know who it was, put it down in the description. I think It's escaping me. Rothschild. That's the name. Anyway, that's my thoughts for today. What are your thoughts? Leave them down in the comments below. Is this a bear trap, or are we going to keep running up from here? What do you think the price is going to be, say, February 1st, 2024? What is your prediction for that price? I would love to read that in the comments. But these are my thoughts for today, and we'll see if we get a rebuttal from Patrick about what's going on with the miners and what's coming up with a halving from that perspective. There's lots going on there. But with all that said, I'm going to leave it there for now, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.